what we're really focusing on this morning is the work that our elders of the church do, and trying to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit and give you a glimpse behind the scenes and let them speak to the work that they're doing through these questions that you have asked. So we're going to alternate responses. I think the elders will give their own response, and maybe if the other has some comments or something to add, but that's kind of the format that we're going to go through. I'll ask the question, give it to one of the elders, and they will address it, and we'll keep moving. So let's start with this first question. All of these are up on the screen, so you can read along with me. What is something you wish that we, as the congregation, knew about being an elder at Taylor's? So Alan, let's start with you on this.
Well, first of all, I think I want you all to know how much we appreciate the support that you give us. The position that we have here would not work if we didn't have your support. I get notes on a fairly regular basis from people. I know that some of the teachers down in the lower classes, they'll devote time to their classes and they'll write thank you notes, from the children. And so I have a bunch of those up on my wall. Sheree got after me not long ago. She said, you really need to start taking some of these down. So I've got 2 or 3, but it's very fulfilling to me to hear that you're happy here and that you feel like we're doing a good job and that you appreciate us. That said, I would like to remind all of you that it's really up to you as to how difficult or how easy our job is. If you do what you're supposed to do, if you put God first, then that makes our job really easy. But from time to time, we're called on as elders to get involved in a situation where things have not gone right. Sometimes it's that person's fault. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just life, and we have to help them navigate through that. But it's always a pleasure to successfully sit through a situation and help a person through a difficult time. And as elders, we do that on a fairly regular basis. You get a congregation that's this large, there's always something that's going on. And so I had 2 meetings this past week with some of our young men here that were kind of negotiating or navigating through some difficulties. So I would also like to point out how much I appreciate my fellow elders. These guys do a wonderful job, and I think that I've been an elder since 2010. They have not been an elder quite that long, but during that time, I spend a lot of hours with these guys, and I got to tell you that they are absolutely committed to the health and well-being of your spiritual growth in this congregation, and it's wonderful for me to be able to meet with these other 2 gentlemen on a fairly regular basis, and we talk to each other every week, so, a lot of times, multiple times per week, and it's a joy to be able to serve with 2 other men that are very, very committed to the Lord's cause and want to do what's best for this congregation.
You want to add anything, or do you want to keep on?
I think I could talk forever about any of these topics.
We know that.
About anything, we know that. He knows that. But it occurred to me when you're saying that, and the elders that came before us. We for quite a while, when I became an elder, we would still reach out. Well, Ronnie was an elder, and then we reach out to him later. So many other people in the congregation, you may not know this, we reach out to them still too, because there's nothing miraculous about being an elder. It's more about being experienced and having the qualifications that God gave. And so we lean on so many other people here experience-wise as well, and I value that.
All right, good. So question number 2. What is a common threat to our Christianity that you have seen that we need to be on the lookout for? Matt?
Yeah, great. When we got some of these questions on whatever that was, Thursday or so, Alan Moeller was still in contact with us via email. I don't think that's possible even. He's traveling today and has been. But so I wrote down a few things from some things that he submitted. Alan is very organized. You might not know that, but he diligently wrote down some thoughts. Alan Mosley integrated a number of those things, I know, into what he was saying. We all kind of scan what we might or might not be saying in some form or fashion. But I want to read what Alan said here as part of my answer. He said, perhaps the biggest threat to our Christianity is the creeping influence of our culture that bombards us daily. Whether it is music, radio, internet, fashions, movies, public opinion, or the changing norms, we're influenced by all these things, and to some extent, we feel those influences, and our opinions and actions can be affected, right? And that makes sense. So what's the biggest threat? Worldly influence. I think it's always been that way. I don't know what else it could be except worldly influence, and sometimes that creeps into our own way of thinking, can creep into the church, can creep into things like false doctrine, but it always starts as kind of this worldly, non-godly influence. I would add to that, sometimes what that implies is perhaps a lack of foundation being instilled here. So if the world gets to exert influence, somehow that often means, well, a lack of foundation or a lack of spiritual strength by whoever is being influenced. Is that a natural kind of assumption to make? And so I think we ought to all be cognizant of that, whether it be with our young people as they grow, they get romantic interests, they get other families involved, they get pulled away by worldly doctrines. That's a thing. This idea about my truth, right? My truth, this is my truth. Okay, well, that really puts a lot of influence on what I think, my significance. Do I get the likes out there on social media? Do I get people agreeing with me and have I brought something new to the table? Well, all of that's really dangerous because the likelihood is we are only significant to history, to eternity in the mind of our own Creator, right? Outside of that, we don't really have a lot of significance. And what we need to do is look to the Bible and our Creator and say, what does He say? What does He tell us? That's the truth. Everything else is probably pride. And so if we let the world influence our beliefs, draw us away from what God has said, probably means we're putting some importance on things that shouldn't be so important. Think about, I used this as an example the other day with something, but Stephen in Acts 7, he's being stoned to death. I heard a preacher one time say it wasn't Joe, talking about Stephen as he's dying, and he looks up to heaven and he says, "Forgive them, they don't know what they're doing." And the preacher said, and that's, he was quoting Christ. He was, okay, maybe. The chances are that his foundation, his mimic of Christ, his attempt to be Christ-like, that's a natural conclusion of the man, the Christian, and their efforts throughout life. Is that foundation runs so deep that instinctually and by choice, but instinctually, that was his culmination of his life, was forgive them. And I think that's how deep our foundation should go. If our foundation goes that deep, then the influence isn't going to be that strong, and so then the danger isn't as bad as it could be. But worldly influence is definitely always the biggest danger, in my opinion.
Social media is really, really dangerous. And I would encourage all of you to kind of look at that, look at how much time you spend doing that. What social media has done is it's created this false sense of importance among people, and you're talking about the likes and all that kind of thing, and people have these followers and all that. And I've been asked a couple of times, do I do Facebook? I don't do Facebook. And someone asked me one time why, and I said, because nobody really cares what I had for breakfast. And that's kind of what people put on that kind of thing. And so please be careful about your involvement in things like social media. And every once in a while we'll put the slides that kind of rotate up here. There's one that really caught my eye. It said, as parents, if you don't teach your children to love God, the world will teach them not to. And I think we need to understand that we need to put God first. And if you have God as your center, as your foundation, as Matt was saying, make your decisions through that filter. Then I think you'll be fine. But if you start making decisions based on just what you want, what makes you feel good, what makes you think makes you popular with other people, then you're letting that influence come in.
All right, I'm starting to see that I should have brought a timer up here. All right, so we're going to keep on rolling.
We only have 2 hours, right?
Third question. All right, so to Alan, from your view as elders, what is something that the Taylor's Church could be doing better?
Well, I think no matter where we're at as a congregation, there's always things that we can improve on. And what I would do is I would encourage all of you to be completely and totally involved in everything that the church does. Make what we do here a priority in your life. There are people that just decide that they're just going to come once in a while, or they're not going to give as they have something else that crops up during the week, and they're going to forego their giving. But get completely and totally involved. This is one of the things that we say to new members as they come when we're sitting down and talking to them. We say we would like to see you just be fully involved. And at the risk of sounding too political, John Kennedy, in his inaugural speech in 1961, said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." I would encourage you to have that kind of mentality about this congregation. Be a giver as much as you can. Be a giver as opposed to a taker. Congregations are generally made up of 3 different kinds of people. There's givers, and there's takers, and there's people that are somewhat in between, going from one to the other. Not to say that being a taker is a bad thing. Sometimes people are in a position where they have to be a taker. But have this attitude of what it is that I can do. You get a congregation this large, there's always something that you can do. I want to brag on Joe Greer for just a minute, since he's not here.
Don't do that.
Yeah. But when the elders decided that it was time for us to get another preacher, we just felt like the workload needed to be spread out a little bit, and so we hired Joe to come in. And so we gave Joe this office back here, and he was looking for a particular kind of desk. And he wanted this desk to fit in a certain space, and he wanted it to be very conducive to having Bible studies on both sides of the table. And he couldn't find one, and so I said, you know what, I think I could probably build one for you. So I built one, and he comes back to me later, and he said, is there any way that you could carve a verse on the top of this desk? And I said, sure, we could do that. I talked to John Gardner, who runs that particular piece of equipment in our company, and I said, yeah, we could do that. And I asked Joe, I said, what verse do you want? And he says, I want to put down Isaiah 6, verse 8. Here am I, send me. Here am I, send me. That's the verse that first came to his mind. So there was something about that verse that Joe wanted to be reminded of that every day. And so I would encourage you, if you want to do something better, make sure that you have that here am I, send me kind of attitude about this congregation.
Matt, you want to add anything?
No, that's good. Thank you.
I'm still waiting on my desk. Just saying. Joe hadn't worked here a day, and he gets a brand new custom-made desk. But hey, I mean, you did paint my office, so I Okay. Question number 4 to Matt. How often do you meet with members of the congregation for counseling purposes or similar things such as that?
Yeah, good. Thank you. First, let me tell you, I think that word counseling gives me some pause in general. We are not trained counselors. We're not psychotherapists. We're not psychologists. We are, at best, the kind of culmination of what it means to be a mature Christian. That's on our best days, right? We are mature Christian men. So if you look at the term elder, maybe that just means older, right? That's not really the case. But elder meaning somebody that has some life experience. Overseer, someone with some amount of authority. Shepherd, someone who kind of herds along. None of those really are about, well, how do you feel about what you feel, right? Tell me what you think about that. I'm not really trained in that way. And so we meet with people a lot. And I don't mean necessarily as a group, but any individual of us might be meeting with somebody at any given day or time. And really, I'll say, with Alan and Alan both being retired, I am sure they even get put into that a lot more than I do. Although I do, and I enjoy meeting with people when they are in need or need of advice. Joe and Ben do a lot of that, again, not as elders, as mature Christian men who know the Bible. And I would say if you expect and you want to go talk to someone to get good advice, talk to any of us. I would like you to do that. I would encourage you to do that. It's a great place to get advice. I have people that I go to talk to get advice, among whom are all these 4 people, right? I don't know everything about everything. But I would tell you it's probably not necessarily going to be, if you need actual counseling, get counseling. If you want to know how to make better choices or what God says about the choices that you're going to make, yeah, come talk to us, if that makes sense. We occasionally use that word, and I don't want to use it so lightly that the point gets missed. If you are looking to work your way through a difficult circumstance or looking to know maybe our opinion of what the Bible has to say on something, we would love to talk to you about that. If you need counseling, true counseling, how do I work out the issues that I had formed from my childhood? Happy to talk to you about that briefly, about some choices you can make, one of which would probably include actual counseling, if that makes sense. We all, I want to restate it, we all have plenty of things we'd love to talk to you about and can be very helpful in that. But I thought it was an interesting question. We do get both sides of that. Hey, would you meet with me? I'm going through a difficult circumstance. I'd like to know what you think about it. Absolutely. Hey, would you meet with me? I have deep-seated issues that I don't know how to reconcile. Yeah, great. That's a great meeting to have, and then, yeah, get some actual counseling.
We can point you in the right direction.
Absolutely, and we do.
There are professionals who are trained in this, which we are not, and at a minimum, we don't want you just getting on Google and searching for, therapist near me. Right. And who knows what you're going to find, right? We would like to point you towards someone who has at least somewhat of a biblical perspective who can help you at a professional level, which we cannot do.
Absolutely. We have helped with legal issues with people. We are not attorneys. We have helped with financial issues with folks, and we are not financial planners. We have helped. The Bible is a source of all knowledge, right? We get that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have to incorporate some other helps in that as well.
Okay, so this next question, the next 2 questions, both of them are going to answer because they are somewhat personal in their nature, because one of them has to do with your wives, and then the other has to do with somewhat of an opinion about your work, and we wanted to hear from both of you. So, Alan, we'll start with you. Question number 5, what has been the biggest blessing that your wife has brought to your service as an elder? So, Alan and then Matt.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I've been an elder since 2010, so almost 14 years now. And I remember very vividly when that opportunity came up for me, and Cherie and I spent a lot of time talking about what this was going to look like and the role that she was going to play in helping me through this. And I have to tell you that I could not ask for a better partner in life and a better elder's wife. She is there all the time for me. She's the one that reminds me when I let something slip, and I do from time to time. But she's always, most of you at one time or another have been to my home, and you know that when you come to my house to eat, everything's all laid out and everything's organized. I got to say, that's all her. I might fill the glasses with ice. That's about the extent of what I can do in the kitchen. But that's kind of all her. She is absolutely dedicated to your children. I think this year, 2023, out of the 4 quarters, she's teaching 3 of those quarters. This past week, since we're coming up to a new quarter, this past week, our dining room table has been literally covered with material that she's going to use for the 4th quarter, and does a marvelous job with that. She'll always say, "Hey, have you called so and so?" Or "We need to have so and so over. Do you need to do this? You need to do that." So she's just really good at reminding me, and so I appreciate very much what it is that she does. I cannot imagine doing this job without her.
Yeah, at the most basic level, we are not elders without our wives, right? That is part of the relationship, part of the qualities that God put forth as just being an elder. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Regardless of our individual wives being qualified, they can't take on the responsibility of being an elder. Their responsibilities are not our responsibilities. They have an entirely set of things that they are supposed to do and that they do on their own. And so when Trudy at home, who's going to more ably critique me than my wife? Who's going to be able to critique me? I didn't say criticize, right? Although maybe there's some of that but between any husband and wife. But critique the job I'm doing. Matt, you could do better here. Matt, did you remember to do this? I'll give you a silly thing. This is not about being an elder, but our check every Sunday, it's on the table ready to bring in because of what we've established in our household is how we're going to give. Trudy writes that check and lays it out for me to bring it in every Sunday. I don't do that. There's so many things in our eldership and my elders' work that Trudy does the same thing. I'll give you a big example. Other than last week, perhaps, I'm pretty healthy. I've been healthy my whole life. It doesn't do a lot for me when it comes to helping me empathize with people, right? So often if I go visit someone in a hospital setting or call someone or text them when they're not feeling well, a lot of that's because of what I've learned from Trudy's strength of being able to empathize with people because of her own issues that she's had. But we'll go into a hospital. We went to a hospital the other day to visit somebody, and immediately she almost wants to wilt at the door because of this phobia that she's kind of smells, being stuck in a hospital all the time, developed over the years. And yet, by the time we get to the elevator, she's fine because she knows that person needs a visit and what it means to be visited when you're in the hospital. There I am doing my job as an elder, go visit somebody, and yet I know it wouldn't occur to me a lot of times to do what someone needs because I don't think about those types of needs maybe as much in a different circumstance. So Trudy's a foundation of a lot of that. We talk about hospitality, right? All your kids have been over, but a lot of you have been over the years at our house. Hospitality is really about love of strangers. That's what the word means, right? It's not necessarily love of having everyone over to your house. But at the same time, when that happens, just like Alan was saying, I do a lot. That's fine. I do stuff. I prepare. But it wouldn't happen if Trudy is not the one saying, hey, you're supposed to be doing this, Matt. Oh, yeah, you're right. Let's do it. Clancy kind of does some of the same stuff for me, too. Delaney did, too. But it's going to happen no matter how Trudy's feeling. She may be in the back taking a nap when everybody's over there because she's done. She did what she could. And that's fine. But that happens because of our teamwork. You can go way back. I don't want to talk too long, but you can go way back in time and think about, okay, well, why did our kids turn out the way they do? Matt, I didn't grow up in a household that knew how to train kids up in the way they should go. I didn't know that correction meant training, not flying off the handle every time something went wrong with some kind of fit of let me grab whatever's in my hands, right? I could see from the Bible what that teaches, but getting that example of, hey, Matt, look, this is how that's going to lay out. Oh, okay, now I'm supportive of that. I can enforce that. I'm the leader of a household. I get it. That makes sense. Let's do it that way. But without that example in our own house, how would that even work? It's very much a partnership in all things that we do all the time.
Well, you both have said some things that we talked about last week in our class, that wives bring something that husbands don't have. And they have a different perspective. They help us think through these things in a better way. And you both are reinforcing that as you talk about your wonderful wives.
Alan Moeller wrote way too much stuff. And Mary Gail's not here anyway, so I'm not even going to bother with it.
All right, so this next question, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. I suspect they'd be very similar to mine, obviously not as an elder, but from a preacher's perspective, I think our answers would be the same. But the sixth question, what is your favorite and least favorite part of serving as an elder?
I have a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment when people do the right thing. And I'm very, very cognizant of decisions that people make when we're talking, and I said, this is what you did, this is what happened, why did you do that? I think my favorite thing about being an elder is watching you grow spiritually. That's, in a nutshell, that's my job here. That's Matt's job. That's Alan's job, is to make sure that you have the tools that you need to get to heaven. That's what we're about. And so my favorite thing about it is when I see direct evidence that that's important to you and that you're doing that. Obviously, my least favorite part is when that doesn't happen. And there are times when it doesn't happen. I've kind of said before, it amazes me the propensity, the proclivity that people have to justify things in their life. And sometimes people want something so badly that they will go to all kinds of lengths to try to justify it in their life. And I'm sitting there on the other side of the table listening to this, and I know exactly what's going through the mind. This is not about what's best. This is about what you want. And so it's very disheartening as an elder to sit there and say, you're going in the wrong direction. This is not smart. But they do it anyway, and then we have to kind of part ways or whatever. That's probably my least favorite part. So.
I'm going to read what Alan Moeller wrote first, because my favorite part, we're to say my favorite part is working with Alan and Alan. That's my favorite part. I love everything he just says exactly right, but selfishly my favorite part is just the time I get to spend with those two guys, and for good purpose. Alan says, I am truly blessed to serve with two very capable fellow elders. We know that each of us want to do all we can to keep the Taylor's Church scripturally sound, growing in our knowledge and devotion, at peace with one another. We have different strengths that we bring to the eldership, and we rely on one another and trust one another. We can be candid in our meetings to the point that an outsider who heard our discussion might think things were getting a little heated. But we know each other's heart, and we have always been able to come to an agreement among ourselves on every issue we faced. I read all of that. He had more. But because the transition then, you know what his least favorite thing was? As being an elder, not in an elder's meeting, but it's confrontation. So when Alan says that we can be frank and we can have good discussions about important things, and we do the same thing every other month as an elders meeting with Joe and Ben, among men whom we respect, it's my favorite thing. It's an amazing feeling. The thing I like the least, the thing I really don't like at all, is not the confrontation. I don't mind confrontation. It's sorrow. It's just being blunt. That's the word. Have you ever heard the idea that I wouldn't trade problems with anybody? Okay. We all have our problems. What do? We get used to those problems. There are problems. There are issues. You got health issues, like they're my health issues. What do you do as an elder? You invite all the stuff into your life of other people's problems. And I don't have a miraculous way out of it. I don't have a set of steps. If you follow these 6 steps, you'll be fine in no time. I don't have that. We all have the same exact answers. We go to the Bible. So then what you have are people that didn't listen to the Bible so long that they made bad decision after bad decision after bad decision in this web now of life that they're not going to get extricated from. And I have to look at the situation and I say, well, yeah, I don't have any idea how here's what you're going to need to do. And I realize, there's no way they're going to do that. There's no way they're going to make this terrible thing change in their life because of the web over here they're already existing in, and it hurts. I avoid sorrow like the plague in my house, okay? I don't have time for it. But when you're dealing with someone else's, now you've invited that into your household, you take it home with you, your wife asks how your meeting went, somebody says, what's going on? You know what? It's not even something that I'm going to put on your plate, because I would never dream of me to go put that on somebody's plate. And yet, somebody needs help. There we are. They're happy to help. The sorrow is I don't have the ability to help in some amount of the time, and it hurts.
Well, those are the answers that I expected, and those would have been my answers as well. Our greatest joys are in seeing people thrive spiritually and do well, and our greatest sorrows are when people don't do that. In whatever form that presents itself, ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Okay, so this next question is for Alan, and we're going to have to move it along, gentlemen, because I know you've got some things you want to say at the end. So what advice do you have for young men and their wives as they consider potential service in this role in the future?
In Matthew 22, Jesus was posed the question, what is the greatest commandment? And I always look at a form of that question as going up to Jesus and say, Jesus, if you could tell me one thing, just one thing, what would it be? And you know what he said in Matthew 22? He says, love God with all your heart, soul, and your mind. And so my advice to people of any age, as you're preparing for this role, make sure at the very foundation that you love God. This role of an elder is not about you. It's not about feeding your ego. It's not about power. It's not about having a position of authority. It's not about any of those things. It's about having a love for God, and by extension, you love the people of God. And if you have that in your mind, that's the number one thing that I would say be prepared for. Make sure that you love God.
All right, excellent. All right, Matt, what is one of the most important things a young family should do to be committed and useful in the Lord's service? What about a middle-aged person or couple, an older person or couple? I'm going to have to be concise on this. This is a big question.
I'm not going to hit each and every one.
And it's very similar to the previous in a lot of ways.
It is. First of all, I would go say read Philippians 2. Read especially the first part of Philippians 2. If you really want to know what you need to be doing as a Christian at every age, go read Philippians 2, submit to one another, do the best you can, okay? So what I would say is, I wrote this down, focus on serving God to whatever capacity God has given you to serve in the idea of the eldership, rather than focusing a target goal of eldership, right? So at any capacity, focus on whatever capacity God has given you to serve rather than anything else. If you have done everything you can do with what God has given you, that's all you're supposed to do. God doesn't ask us to give what we don't have. He only asks us to give what we do have. And if we are not giving what we have, then we better figure out how to do that. And I don't mean giving monetarily, that's part of it. I mean in service of your time, of your experience, of what God has given you. I love being an elder. I enjoy being an elder, let's say it that way. I loved being a deacon, right? A teacher. Here's my job. I did my job. Done with my job. I don't have to worry about the rest. There are advantages in every stage of life. Do what you have the ability to do that God has given you. Do that, and the rest takes care of itself.
Yeah, and I'm going to have some more to say on that in the sermon this morning.
Good.
So the final question, and this is going to lead to something that Alan wanted to share. The last question, though, is would it be possible to have the elders explain what the Taylor's Church procedure would look like when additional elders would be considered for service? For example, are nominations and or appointments determined by the current elders, or is there congregational involvement? Alan, you wanted to speak to this, so we're going to give you the floor on that.
Right, and I'll wrap this up. But it's a great question. But first of all, I want to say that I feel like Joe and Ben did a wonderful job in presenting this information to you. And the whole reason that we talked about doing this, if you look at the church app and go down the church app and start counting people, we've got nearly 300 people in this congregation. 300 people, that's a lot for 3 guys to take care of. And so we really feel like we're at the point where we need some help. And we also feel that there are men in this congregation that are well and highly qualified that would be able to help us. And I think that most of them would have the opportunity to do that. But if you want to know what the process will look like, what we'd like to do is over the coming weeks and months is that we would like to start this process. Haven't talked to Matt and Alan about this, but the very first thing will be that we'll make a formal announcement that we are going to be looking at trying to install more elders. That will probably happen like in October or something, where we'll make that announcement. At that point, then we would ask the congregation to submit names. Who is it that you want to lead you? This is not our choice, this is your choice. And so we would allow for a certain amount of time to have those names come in. Once we have the names, then the 3 of us then will look through those names, and the ones that are the most frequently submitted, we'll kind of pare it down to two or three guys. Our job as elders then would be to make sure that the qualifications are there and that the desire of that man is there. Once that's done, then we would announce those particular names. These are the 2 men, these are the 3 men that we would like for you to consider. There's got to be a period of time then that you would have as members of the congregation to go to those men, ask them questions, raise concerns, say whatever you want to say in order to kind of expedite that process. Assuming then that those men's names are acceptable to the congregation, then what we would do is we would announce them that they would be installed in an elder at a particular date. I think from a time standpoint, we would like to have this wrapped up by the end of the year so that we're starting out the new year with a new edition of elders. So that pretty much is what the process would look like. But I want to ask the congregation if there's any other aspect of that is not clear, or that you might have more of a specific question. Anybody have anything that they want to say about that or ask about that? Okay. I did a really good job answering that question, I guess. So that's all we have, and I think we're out.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for submitting the questions that you did. Hopefully this was helpful to you. Hopefully as every Sunday we have spent this quarter, hopefully it helped you have a better appreciation for our elders and what they do, and better understanding of what it means to serve a church in this way. I think we've just got a few seconds left before the bell rings, so whatever time we have left is yours. So thank you. There it is.